be there. Okay, so and that's used now. Is that used throughout therapy, or is it? I mean, is it very specific how you use it, or do you have? When we were in therapy, we were told so much of the time what to do. Or eval and treat is a very general order, but how frequently is that used with people?
Well, it really depends on the goals of the patient, right, and what the patient can tolerate and what's appropriate. So again, that's when we're establishing a plan of care for a patient, it depends on what we're working on. If it's someone who's a little bit higher level, like you said, you do need to be able to participate. And your goals are to improve endurance and strength. This could always be something. It's not something we're going to use every day with a patient. I'll be honest, but it's something to incorporate. Maybe to reach that Friday goal when they just can't do any more therapy that week. Well, let's play a little golf on the way.
Okay, interesting. Go golf. Yeah. There's another one. Well, let's talk about some equipment, because that'll be a nice segue into Chris showing us his toys.
Sure.
And so you were talking. You brought up the Omnicycle, some equipment that you use that maybe is a little bit a little bit cutting edge. Maybe something that somebody's outside of weights and things like that.
Right. We do have some different pieces of equipment that in our department allow us to, again, accommodate to a patient's needs. So if someone comes into rehab, oftentimes they're not going to be able to lift a weight or do that standard type of strengthening, say. So some of the equipment that we have allows you to, a couple examples, you could wheel someone up in a wheelchair up to the Omnicycle, or a system that looks kind of like a bike, and they can grade how much resistance is given. If they're pedaling, it can be active assistive, meaning if someone doesn't even have the strength to pedal, it can help promote that to then engage someone in an exercise. So it kind of, again, it accommodates to the needs of people who might not be able to do that traditional strengthening exercise that you might think of in another setting. It accommodates to people in the nursing facility.
And is Biodex, that was another, that was, what is Biodex?
Right, so that's another, it also looks like kind of like a recumbent bike, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Yep, and so this is another type of aerobic exercise where this does require someone to transfer onto a bike. They can sit on it, pedal, and again, we can grade the resistance so that they can work on their endurance and their strength all at the same time. Great.
And are there any other activities that go on outside of therapy at Plymouth Life Care Center?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I like to think that rehab is the most fun and exciting department to come on down to.
Of course.
There's always other things going on. Our facility has an entire activities department dedicated to, keeping patients and residents engaged, and we have, whether it's movies or game night or entertainment. We have an ice cream shop that's open every single day for an hour, which can be dangerous. But people like to come and socialize, have an ice cream social.
Sure.
There's a beauty parlor. People can go to get their hair done. So there's always stuff going on. And actually, another thing to get people out of the facility, the rehab team, as well as the activities department, goes on things called community outings. So from a rehab perspective, as people are getting to, approaching the time when they're ready to go home, we have to remember that people don't just have to function in the rehab setting or just in their home. So we'll take them on a community outing to make sure they can, say, navigate the grocery store, or that they could go to a restaurant and effectively get in line and make an order and those things. So it's
things
kind of
that are
like
easy to take for granted.
Exactly, exactly. So it prepares people sort of for that safe transition back into their home and their community.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That is interesting, and it's well thought out, it sounds like. Chris, let's talk to you for a bit here. Pull you in. I feel like we've been ignoring you here. Tell everybody about Mass EDP and how the program works.
Mass EDP, again, the Equipment Distribution Program, is a program run by the State 911 Department that provides, in most cases, free equipment to people with disabilities. So any disability that would impede one's use of the telephone, so someone who is hard of hearing or legally blind, or has trouble dialing because of maybe neuropathy in the fingers, or even something like people who are quadriplegic, all the way to cognitive problems, or you might have trouble remembering your numbers. There's kind of something, right? There's something for everybody. So we cover all disabilities that would keep you from being able to use the telephone.
Okay.
And you need to be a resident of Massachusetts, so it only covers Massachusetts. And then other than that, you need to have an active home telephone number.
Okay.
So with Verizon or Comcast or any of the other providers. But we don't do cell phones yet. Hopefully that will be coming in the future. Right now it's only a home phone-based program.
Okay.
And then you need a doctor's certification to verify you have the disability you're signing up for, which usually is not a problem.
Pretty easy to get.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so just as far as populations that you tend to be serving, what kind of numbers are we talking about, and what kind of populations are
in
you?
Massachusetts, there's roughly 250,000 people that are part of this program.
Wow.
And that statistic is from about 2 years ago, so it could be somewhat upward from that.
Holy cow, okay.
And then I think it's estimated that there are roughly 600,000 people in Massachusetts that could benefit from this
Are
that
eligible?
haven't signed up yet. Exactly,
Wow.
yeah. So part of my job
Awareness
is doing
and education.
outreach. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, right, thank you.
Well, that's great. I mean, I would have, if I was guessing, I would have been far south of those numbers. That's a bit alarming, actually. 600,000 people eligible for those kinds of programs?
Yeah, I guess it does sound alarming, but I think when you hear disability program,
Sure.
sometimes you get kind of a picture in your mind of what that means, when in reality, there are a lot of people who wouldn't necessarily consider themselves disabled,
Yeah.
but could benefit from a telephone compared to what they're using now.
I didn't even think 600,000 people in Massachusetts had a home phone.
Right. Well, and that's one reason why eventually we will be going into cell phones, because more and more people don't want to pay 2 bills for the cell and the landline.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's time for a little show and tell. I like the toys. So you brought some of the adaptive equipment available through the program. Can you run us through that?
I'd be happy to. This is my favorite part.
Um,
The first one I like to show off is called the CapTel. And this is one of the newer technologies that came out. It was available in Massachusetts about 2 or 3 years ago. And what this does is show the user what the person on the other end of the phone is saying. So this would be for someone who's hard of hearing or even profoundly deaf.
Okay.
So much like the closed captioning on the television, this will print out every word that the other party is saying.
Wow.
And you'll hear it too. So some people will listen and then try and pick up the words in print if they miss a couple words here and there.
Okay.
Where other people will only read the screen if they really can't hear on the phone at all.
Is this like Dragon Naturally Speaking? Is it it's like that
Yeah.
voice recognition software? Or that?
It is. It's very similar to that. In fact, in the old systems, and you still can do this, they have a relay system that we oversee also, that if
Okay.
you dial 711, you can tap into an operator that would translate either speech to type or type to speech. But with this, the good thing is you don't need to rely on an operator.
Wow.
So how it works is if I were to call someone who was using this, I would dial your number. Say I'm picking up this phone. It's easier to explain that way. If I pick up this phone and dial your number, I will automatically be connected to a captioning service.
Okay.
And then there is computer software that would translate your speech into type for me to then read on the screen, if that makes sense. So it's like a triangular system.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the good thing about this is it allows people to have a more natural conversation even if they can't hear, because in the past, the person on the other end would hear the operator's voice reading what they typed if they were using like a TTY. And now you'll hear, your friend or your family member speaking in their normal voice.
Okay.
And then they can then read what you're saying back to them.
Interesting. That's an interesting toy. And how new is that? How long has that technology been?
About 2 or 3 years
2 or 3
on
years.
this one.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's been around a little longer than that, but Massachusetts had to
Had to
different
catch up.
laws.